welcome to St. Joseph University online platform. Today we'll be with me, Mr. Sebastian, presenting to you Geography 2, Form 6 Geography 2, which is basically based in human and economic geography. Welcome and enjoy our today's session. So as I have said, Geography 2 covering the human and economic geography. Possibly we have different topics to make in today's discussion. Topic number 1 will be human and population development. Topic 2 will be question from agricultural development. Question number 3 will be from the mining or power and energy. Other questions will be from the sector of transport and communication, sustainable forest, and the part of tourism. Welcome and enjoy our platform. So question number 1 states, planning without population data will be difficult. Justify this quotation and show 3 conventional sources of demographic data. So a part of this question is describing the uses of population data for planning. Population data for planning. Uses or importance of population data for planning. So the question needs us to describe the importance of having population data in relation to planning. Population means a number of people or a group of people residing or living in a geographical unit per time. A population can be high or moderate or low, depending on the amount of the people live or survive within the geographical unit. So a population is covering or has different features, including an even distribution, density of it, the population ratio or sex ratio, that's female in relation to male, and the other features. The other term to make in this question is population data, which means an information pertaining to the geographical unit or an information regarding the population. This information have different parameters, including age and sex, including their activities, that's economic status of the community, marital status, and the other features of the demography or other features of the population. So population data has different sources. Population data can be collected in different sources. One source is traditional means of collecting data, and the other is non-traditional way of collecting data. For that question, which is conventional data collection or conventional source of data, is basically describing the traditional source of data, which is number 1, traditional source of data. Number 1 is what we call census. Number 2 is sample survey. Number 3 is what we call veto registration. So those are traditional or conventional source of demographic data. So by starting with the census means a process of collecting data or compiling demographic data based on the demographic parameters such as age, sex, marital status, the economic level of a community or economic level of people, maybe being a rich or a poor in their families, the level of dependence, that's the dependence ratio, which means number of dependents in relation to workers in a community, and the other demographic parameters. So census is very important as it is used for planning. As a population or government can plan for having the number of people in relation to the limitation or limit of the social services. For instance, a government can plan to have the educational services due to availability of the population growth or rise in number of people in relation to the available schools or institutions or any facilities like universities. So having census as a traditional means of data helps the government to plan for different activities, including the social services and the other economic planning. Sample survey means a source or a reliable source of collecting data by using sample. Sample means individuals chosen or selected to represent others There are just few ones chosen by the surveyors or chosen by the researchers to make them as representative of others. So sample survey is commonly used for the small unit of people or small unit areas with less than maybe 10,000 or 5,000 people, which means a small area can use a sample survey. Sample survey mostly uses a sampling technique of collecting data. As we all know that the sampling techniques including non-probability sampling and the probability sampling, such as systematic sampling, random sampling, cluster sampling, to make a few. Sample survey as a reliable source of traditional collection of data is very important, as it covers a small unit of area and get the number of people who represent others to distribute or so to plan for the governmental and non-governmental activities. The third, to make a traditional source of data or traditional collection of demographic data is what we call veto registration. Veto registration means a means of collecting data based on the veto, which means important events of the community. The veto registration includes the registration of birth, registration of divorce, which is marital status of a community, registration of death, registration of migrants, to make a few. So the important events collected by the government to get data or number of either dependents or workers, which can be either in one way or another help the government to make a plan of their social services and other economic activity. So these are three main sources of data which are called conventional or traditional source of demographic data. So there are just three as main method of getting data by using either census, which means collection of data based on schedule method of data collection, also sample survey, which uses just a few ones to represent others in presentation of data and making decision. Visualization is the third and the last to make in traditional method of data collection, which mostly involve the registration of important events like birth or fertility rate, mortality rate, and the whereas migration part. So this is the part one of the question, which needs us to describe three sources of demographic data, three sources of population data. How can we get population data? How can we get information regarding the human population based on traditional means? So we can get our traditional means or traditional data by using the either census, either the so-called data registration or sample survey. So the second part of the question is uses or important or usefulness of the so-called population data. How planning depends on the human population data. So the question serves us to describe how important is the population data in relation to the planning. So the very interesting part of uses is the planning of anything in a community depends on the number of the available resources in relation to number of people. If you are planning maybe for construction of houses, maybe needs the number of people in relation to that construction. You need to construct maybe the road transport. It encourages you to know the number of people who will travel or who will pass through your infrastructure. So planning is very important as it enables us to do the best in our life. However, needs the human population data, which means the demographic data. So point number one to make there is understanding the trend of the human population. So demographic data is very important in planning as it helps to know the trend of the population, to know either the increase or decrease in the number of people in our community. So the population growth, for instance, depends on the data collected. So justification of either the human population is increasing or is rising depends on the collection of data by means of either census or sample survey, data registration, to make few. Therefore, the increase or decrease helps the government to make a plan of distributing different social services. As I have said, For instance, if we have a school, the construction of school depends on the number of customers. Whose customers are students. So the number of students are variable within your geographical unit is in there because of the census data or visual registration or sample survey as a reliable source of collecting data. Number two, planning for social services. Planning for social services. Having the data means you can plan for anything. One would be is social services. So the distribution of social services depend very well in relation to the available number of people. Education, for instance, health service, distribution of water, among others, depend with amount of the number of people available in the social and in the society. Therefore, planning depends with the population data. As we have said, having population data means you can have a total number of people residing in a geographical unit. Number three to make is planning for population control. Planning for population control. So the demographic data or population data is very important since it helps us to plan for control, to have different measures to take, different check on the growth of population. So for instance, family planning control, family planning or birth control depends on the growth, the increase of the human population. So the higher number of population means the government will take a plan to control the growth or to check on the growth of population. Therefore, planning is of important in relation to demographic data. So having demographic data means you can have a plan, which plan is to control a human population, to control the growth of population. Number four to make is what we call to check on the population change. To check on the population change. Population change. So population change means population dynamics, which means either increase in number of people or decrease in number of people in relation to fertility rate, mortality, and migration. So this means that the change in the population is either caused by fertility, mortality, or migration. So, for instance, the higher birth rate, the higher fertility rate means the higher the population, means increase in number of people, which means positive population growth. A mortality, which means death, lead to negative population growth. So the decline in population means we have a higher number of mortality rate. We have high number or high rate of death. While migration account both increase and decrease, which means immigration encourage more positive growth of our population. While out migration encourage what we call positive, negative or decrease in the population growth. Therefore, we can say a check on population change depends on the data, either collected by census, sample survey, or veto registration. So having high number of population means high population growth can result to negative impact to community, as the higher number of people means you can have the so-called unemployment rate or increase in unemployment rate, increase in social evils like prostitution and other evils. Also, you can have what we call environmental pollution, as of a population can create dumping sites or can create a negative to the environment and it creates environmental degradation. So a population should be checked. A population change which is positive can be checked. However, having high population means also a positive side, which is asset of a population. As we all know that having high population or having overpopulation means you have a great labor power. You have a so-called a number of markets, which means will be high demand in production, therefore industry can go easily. So also having the high population can account the so-called so-called high rate of dependence as negative side. So our population data can create the government to plan for check, especially when we have overpopulation, which means high rate of population in relation to available resources, which can create negative side, and almost all sectors will be a rural industry, which means will be a negative side to the environment. Hence, we will not meet the so-called sustainable development of a community. Another point to make as usefulness or importance of the population data in relation to our case here is what we call development of the budget or budgeting process. So we have budget or balance of income because of the number of people, either overpopulation or underpopulation or optimum population. So having a number of either overpopulation, underpopulation or optimum population means we can make a budget. A budget of what? Taking money to various sectors to serve or to solve the problems of our people. So government can plan or can budget in their parliament to take some amount to distribute to different sectors so that their community or their people can be served. For instance, overpopulation means the high number of people in relation to available resources. Here we mean we have few resources. We have just a few resources in relation to the higher or population density. This means will be negative to the community as people will fight each other to have the resources. Underpopulation means we have a few people in relation to many resources. So here you mean many resources are available, which means greater, while the people there are what? A few ones. This is somewhat a challenge or a bit challenging as some resources can be accessed or cannot be extracted by community, as we have just a few ones who cannot extract everything. For instance, we have a ton of 100 ton of the minerals like gold, but a consumer is only just one, which means one person cannot just extract the 100 ton of that mineral. So having underpopulation also is a bit challenging. Population studies as having many resources with a few ones means we have a little extraction of those resources. Optimum population means a balance between available resources and the people. So according to theorists like Mathers, like Esther Bosrap, they always argue that the community must have the so-called optimum population, which means having just a little number of people versus a little resources, or having greater number of people also in the other side greater resources, which means we have a plenty of resources, also a plenty of the consumer. This means a balance of resources available versus the community. The resources available can be easily extracted by the community. So we are always argue to have this balance because it balance or it budgets all resources available in the community. So those were some 5 very important usefulness of having population data in relation to planning, as having demographic data means you can show the trend, you can show the increase or decrease in the amount of people, which means you can show the rise or fall in population. Having also a number of people or population data means you can distribute easily the social services. Social services like education, health, water, electricity, among others, can be easily accessed by the community in relation to the planning of the government as related to the so-called population data. Number 3, as we have described, is check on growth by controlling it. So population control, which means the family planning or birth control or birth family planning can be easily, been put in place because of the data obtained through either census, sample survey, or veto registration. Also, we can check on changes, either caused by fertility, mortality, and migration. As we have said, this fertility, mortality, and migration is what accounts for the component of population dynamics, a component of population change, which means either positively, negatively, as we did in this presentation. Budgeting processes, as also we have linked it to overpopulation, underpopulation, and optimum population. So we have seen that having overpopulation is both advantageous and disadvantageous. Having underpopulation also has many advantages, however also disadvantages. Optimum population is ideally a nightmare to many countries, but one of the best approach to have development in our community. That is the balance between resources available versus a balance of number in terms of population growth. So generally, we can say human population is both an asset and a liability. So our conclusive remark here is having human population is both an asset and a liability. It's an asset, which means it's an advantage as it creates technology, as it creates innovation. Having many people means you can have innovation, which lies to development of technology. Also, the second to make an asset of population is what we call market base. Having a large number of people means market. So you can have many development in terms of industrial development because of having many people. However, also I have said high population also encourage labor supply. The large number you have in a community means you have a skilled labor, semi-skilled labor versus unskilled labor. In the other side, the other part of overpopulation or human population is negative side or negative impact, which means having large number of people means you create mass unemployment. Of population of an area means we have a competition in terms of post of jobs. Therefore, our population can create unemployment or massive unemployment. As you all know, in the current planet Earth, what is existing in many countries, both developed and developing nations. Other part also is negative in terms of environment, which is environmental degradation or environmental pollution. The environmental pollution can be caused by either noise pollution or contamination of water, which is water pollution, and other types of pollution. So this marks the end of the first question, which needs us to show the essentials or the importance or the paramount importance of having population data in relation to planning, also to suggest the means of collecting data, the ways, which is traditional way of collecting data to the community, which we have seen as three main methods, such as census, sample survey, and veto registration. So that's the first question to present for today. The second is also coming from the same topic, which is human population. The questions reads, implementation of Tanzania explicit and implicit population policy of 1992 emerged with different outcomes. Some demographers are still in debate that the accomplishment of this goal were originally set, while the others argue that it has reached nowhere it was to be. Then explain how would you validate this debate by considering the both sides. The setup of the questions need us to show the so-called achievement and failure of population policy. Achievement and failure of population policy. So you can see there in our platform, we have posted some questions there. You can read the question number 2 there, very clear. The target of the question is achievement and failure of the population policy. So there, in our introduction, we can show what is population policy and some element of it, and other types. So population policy means a demographic documents, a document or statement or laws or principles that can be set by the community or set by government or set by individuals to accomplish their goal.